Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is the voice of Ahmed Odunton speaking on the second anniversary of the Russo-Ukrainian War and also on the nature of international relations. In honor of the military and civilian casualties of the Russo-Ukrainian War, it is my desire to make today's video on my limbs instead of on my buttocks. It has been 2 years since a major war broke out between two former confederates of the Soviet Union, which disintegrated in 1991. The disintegration was taken as an ideological triumph for Western democracy and capitalism because decades of a twin polar world yielded to a winner takes all unipolar order. And the champion was the United States of America, which for decades was a fierce ideological antagonist to the former Soviet Union. So, at the end of decades of ideological, economic, and cultural tussle, which had no runners up, God's own country was firmly seated behind the wheels of global hegemony and had the steering firmly in its grip. So it felt vested with a divine authority to provide political, economic, ideological, and cultural navigation for the rest of the world. The policeman of the world, known for a brutal domestic police force, must now export its policing skills. Herring nations must either submit by way of diplomatic arm twisting or suffer economic asphyxiation by way of sanctioning. So, where both fail, thousands of boots are deployed and recalcitrant states must feel the mighty knee of the hegemon on their necks for these divine assignments. A humongous amount of 750 military installations in 80 countries are maintained around the world. So empires only appear to have disappeared from the face of the earth only and from the political lexicon. However, it's transmogrified into colonialism, neo colonialism, and imperialism with the American empire as the political hegemon. Since the end of World War II and the disintegration of the Soviet Union, continental Europe has confidently believed itself the epitome and shining beacon of human civilization. He thought Harris, our god of war, was forever banished to developing and underdeveloped nations. Although its multi-trillion dollars military industrial complex manifested a relentless development of high-tech weapons system, but the underlying understanding was strategic deterrence and also commercial purposes. But 730 days ago, it came as a rude shock to the world that Russia and Ukraine will play host to Harris, who is still busy laying thousands of lives and thousands of miles and land to waste with no end in sight. It must be remembered that the war was initially civil until it became international in 2000 in 2022 after all diplomatic machinery such as the Minsk agreements and the Turkey talks failed to produce amicable resolution thanks to the gaslighting of the West. So while the world remained saddened by the victims of the Russo-Ukrainian War, it has sparked in me a vigorous interest in international politics. I have greedily invested my time philosophizing, seeking to understand the true nature of politics between nations. And on these subjects, I have been in Socratic intercourse with diverse people carrying divergent views. And with humility and no intention to humiliate, I have used the Socratic tools of Helenkos to elicit the truth from my interlocutors. And those who are graced with intellectual humility have always enjoyed the orgasm of knowing what they did not know or what they thought they knew. Because, look, mainstream media, which is the parrot of governments, have not only aided and abetted the spread of ignorance, they have also intentionally refused to hear alternative views. And the result of that is a mass brainwash, a pandemic of ignorance, while they destroy the vaccines of truth. But my philosophizing has yielded me some of these vaccines, and it is my humble prayer that you will avail yourself of a dosage of true knowledge. So let us talk about the nature of international relations. So, at the outbreak of the war, in an attempt to justify or criticize the invasion of Ukraine, a few political terms crept into the public space and they became well known. And topmost of them is the notion of existential threats, which Russia claimed NATO posed to it and used that in justifying the invasion of Ukraine. And it also claimed that it was intervening against the genocide against ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine. And on the Ukrainian side, the overarching argument has been for democracy, rights, and sovereignty. So, sovereignty in the right to decide without let or hindrance to belong to any organization that a state deems fit. Theoretically, this is not supposed to be problematic, but practically, it poses dozens of question marks. And chief is while there is a general acknowledgement that a man has the right to dangle a dagger, no one is mistaken about how close he or she has the right to dangle it close to another man's throat. So the sovereign rights of a state to belong to an organization is not the theoretical question, but the practical question is what is the nature of that organization? What is the antecedent? Is it a military type? Is it a commercial type? And that leads us to the question of existential threats. Many of us have refused to objectively wrap our heads around what constitutes an existential threat to the state. And I have also realized that what constitutes an existential threat to the state does not necessarily and directly threaten the 3 square meals or the livelihood of the citizenry. So we have selfishly and intentionally failed to acknowledge the being of the state, which is a super and supranational entity that has been in existence for thousands of years. And its diets, the diets of the state, are such decisions that guarantee the continued existence of the state till eternity. So right there, the state differs from its citizens, who are mere mortals journeying through the state. Thus, to dismiss the security concerns of a state who has a trauma of invasions is negligent reasoning. It will aid our reasoning if we search the skin of a layman infuse ourselves with the being of the state, wear the thinking cap and glasses of a statesman, only then are you able to comprehend and appreciate the being of the state. And on democracy, the historical origin of Western democracy is the ancient city-state of Athens in 5th century BC. So we can confidently say that politics between nations on the scale of what we have now was pretty much non-existence. So I can affirm that democracy as a political and philosophical thought was intended for domestic politics. So a blind application of the parameters of national domestic democracy to international politics is childish, lazy, and nihilistic. Because when you leave the comfortable domain of domestic politics and dive into the deep waters of international relations, you are going to need the fins of economic might and the gills of military might to stay afloat, to swim, and to survive. Here, might count as much as right, if not more. And to buttress my point is the incontestable evidence that mankind has a tendency to be kind towards its own kind. In the contact of nations, races, the one with the military edge has always sought to conquer, colonize, and enslave the other one. Although that is not the prevailing fashion, however, in the wild arena of present-day international relations, to pretend that might does not outweigh right is an act of self-deception. And that explains the mad arms race and also efforts of some states to develop nuclear arms. Not necessarily for use, because there is the mutually assured destruction, but to secure the eternal existence of the state and to also gain existential leverage in the deep, salty waters of international relation. So in seeking the truth, we must refrain from making judgments until all the facts are clear. Unfortunately, there has been an obstruction of alternative facts. The mainstream media has not had the balls to balance the scale of public opinion. It has only heard the fairy tales of one side, which is a betrayal of its creed. So, while Russia and Ukraine war hits the second anniversary, the world sympathizes with families on both sides who have lost loved ones in this senseless tragedy foisted and gaslighted by Western hegemony. It is our hope that reason will prevail and both brothers will very soon, if not immediately, come to the negotiation table. Thank you. Have a blessed day.